Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It's a Wednesday night, so hopefully your week is off to a good start. Now you are 3/4 of the way to the weekend, so the work week is flying by for all you Monday through Friday 9 to 5ers out there. But today I want to talk some college football. Of course, we're already in the midst of week number 8 because we had games last night and there's games going on tonight. Hey, Haley, glad to have you here. You're just in time. We are fixing to talk some college football. Hey, Marcus, I'm great as always. Glad to have you here. For all of you that are tuning in live, make sure you give the video a thumbs up, like the video, and make sure when we are done that you share the video on all social media platforms. I enjoy reading your comments when I do these live videos. If you have not subscribed, please do that as well. But tomorrow night is when the weekend of college football really starts getting exciting. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on ESPN2, we have Georgia State and Marshall. Hey, Bo, glad to have you here. And then at 7:30 tomorrow night, we have Boston College and Virginia Tech on ESPN. And of course, those two teams used to be bitter rivals back in the old Big East days. And then coming up on Friday night, 7 o'clock on ESPN2, we have Florida State and Duke. 8 o'clock on Fox. Friday night, we have Oregon and Purdue. Then at 10:15 on ESPN, we have Oklahoma State and BYU. Then starting on Saturday at noon, there's some good games this week. Miami and Louisville play on ABC. And then the game that you should be watching, unless you want to be wrong, is ACC Network, Virginia, and Clemson. Tony Elliott makes his return to Death Valley for the first time since leaving to become the head coach in Charlottesville for the Cavaliers. Also, Saturday at noon, we have Nebraska and Indiana on Fox. Hey, Austin, glad to have you here, man. Glad you're tuning in. Tonight's main topic is college football. Nebraska, after having probably the softest opening 6 games in the history of football, their schedule is finally getting a little bit tougher. It looked like when the schedule came out, the first 7 games were going to be easy, but I don't think Indiana was expected to be off to this good of a start by anybody. So this was one game that Nebraska probably had penciled in for a win that may not be a win now. Also at noon, we have Auburn and Missouri on ESPN. East Carolina and Army will be on ESPN2. Wisconsin and Northwestern on the Big Ten Network. UCLA and Rutgers on Fox Sports 1. And Wake Forest and UConn on the CBS Sports Network. And that is all of the noon games. And Wisconsin may have actually gotten lucky because they started the season with Miami transfer quarterback Tyler Van Dyke, and they just did not look good at all on offense. But he got hurt against Alabama, and ever since then, their offense has actually gotten better. But we'll see if that continues coming up on Saturday. Wisconsin has been, a predominantly running team as far back as I can remember. So it's strange to see them slowly going to the spread under Luke Fickle. But if they give him time, it will work. They just got to give him time. But they definitely look better without Tyler Van Dyke. 3:30 on Saturday we have Michigan and Illinois on CBS. NC State and California on the ACC network. A lot of Wolfpack fans now want Dave Doran to be fired because even though I personally didn't think they were going to even contend for the ACC, I thought the whole time it was Miami and Clemson for the conference championship. A lot of people thought NC State had a chance to have a pretty good season, and now they're going to struggle to make a bowl game. ESPNU, we have Louisiana and Coastal Carolina. 12:45 Saturday we have South Carolina and Oklahoma. I talked to a Gamecock fan earlier today, and he was talking about the Gamecocks might win on Saturday, and I told him, they might because Oklahoma just, they just can't score. I mean, their offense looks absolutely pitiful. They benched their five-star quarterback they've had waiting in the wings for a couple of years because he looked awful. So they bench him, bring on the backup, and they look no better. And I told him that I still think South Carolina's a 5-7, 6-6 team, which I thought all throughout the summer. But this is a game that they might win that originally I didn't see them winning. I didn't think that Oklahoma was going to be this bad on offense. But the good news for South Carolina is, yeah, they're still going to be 5-7 or 6-6. But I thought they'd get blown out by LSU, and they competed. I thought they'd get blown out by Alabama, and they competed. So they're still losing, but they're not losing the way I thought they would lose. Hey, I guess that's KOSMY. I will give you a shout out. Glad to have you here. Thank you so much for watching the channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. And make sure you give the video a thumbs up and a like. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And no matter what sport you like, what team you like, you'll find something here that you will enjoy. I don't just talk college football. I also talk NFL. I talk basketball. I talk baseball. I talk NASCAR. And I do top 10 countdowns every week. And sometimes those are not about sports at all. And I post just about every single day. So there's something here on the channel that you will like. Plus, there's a dad joke in almost every single video. And I love a good dad joke. 3:30 on Saturday, we have Alabama and Tennessee on ABC. This is a game with two teams that certainly need to turn their season around. Their records aren't bad, but they just haven't played well. They've kind of went the same direction because Alabama started off, kind of slow, even struggled with South Florida. And then they looked really, really, really good in the first half against Georgia. And then ever since then, they've just looked average. And Tennessee came out of the gate really, 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 really good. And then they hit the Arkansas game. And all of a sudden, their offense looks pitiful. Their offense is getting worse every game. If Dylan Sampson gets hurt, they're in trouble. Because right now, their offense is living and dying on Dylan Sampson. If he doesn't have a big day on Saturday, they're not beating Alabama. The good news for Tennessee is Alabama's defense right now is not good at all. So if there was a game where you could see the Vols offense get going, it might be this game because Alabama's defense is not good at all. Then we have Charlotte and Navy on the CBS Sports Network. Then coming up, we have Hawaii and Washington State on the CW. Then at 4 o'clock on Fox Sports 1, we have USC and Maryland. On Fox, we have Colorado and Arizona. ESPN2, we have Baylor and Texas Tech. True TV, we have New Mexico and Utah State. Then at 4:15 on the SEC network, we have Texas A&M and Mississippi State. And I was surprised when I went back and looked, because a lot of times when you watch the games, you don't really notice stuff or think about stuff until you go back later on and look at the stats. I was surprised last week because Mississippi State might be the worst team among the Power Four schools. If they're not, they're bottom five. I mean, they are absolutely hideous. They're awful. Hey, Danny, glad to have you here. But I went back and looked at the stats last week when Mississippi State played Georgia, and I was surprised to see that Georgia did not have 100 rushing yards against Mississippi State. For some reason, Georgia cannot run the ball this year. I don't know why, because they've got talent back there and they're trying. I mean, they're calling running plays. So it's not like they're not even trying to run the ball. They're trying. They just can't run the ball this year. If I'm not mistaken, they have not had a 100-yard rusher so far this year. And as a team, they didn't have 100 rushing yards against Mississippi State. And when you can't do that, you can't run the ball. And for whatever reason, Georgia's also not playing very good in the first quarter. They're pretty much being a three-quarter football team right now. They're not aware that football is 4 quarters. Coming up at 7 o'clock Saturday on ESPN, we have LSU and Arkansas. And this is a game that LSU needs. Arkansas definitely has played better than expected so far. But LSU's toughest games are coming up. So if they want to avoid having a 3 or 4 loss season, they need this win big time. I'm fixing to talk about Georgia and Texas when I get there in just a couple of minutes. Marcus, I'm glad you asked. 7:30 on ABC is the game Marcus just asked about, Georgia and Texas. Do I think Georgia can win the game? Absolutely. Georgia has just as good of talent as Texas does, but I don't think Georgia will win the game only because, as I just mentioned, for whatever reason, Georgia cannot run the ball this year. There's no explanation and reason as to why, but they can't, and I just don't think you're beating Texas when you can't run the ball and you're one-dimensional. Not to mention, Georgia in the first quarter just looks absolutely awful. That's the reason they lost to Alabama. They just got too far behind too quick, and I just don't see them coming out Saturday and playing Texas and looking flat in the first quarter and getting far behind and coming back and winning. Now, if they come out and play good in the first quarter, and the first quarter comes and goes, and it's 7-7 or 10-7, even 7-3, and Georgia has a pulse on offense, they have a chance. But if they look as bad in the first quarter they've looked the last few weeks, and the first quarter ends and Texas has 10 or 14 points and Georgia has 0, and they can't run the ball, no. But if Georgia can come out Saturday and actually show up on offense in the first quarter, they've got a chance. But because of the fact they can't run the ball for whatever reason, and they look awful in the first quarter, I'll go with Texas. But if Georgia wins the game, it's not going to surprise me. I have no idea what the point spread is. I don't follow point spreads because I'm not a gambler. But I would predict the game's probably going to be a one-score game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Georgia will continue what they've done the last few weeks and come out of the gate sluggish and get behind and just not be able to come back. Fox Sports 1 at 7:30, we have Central Florida and Iowa State. And then we have 7:30 on Fox, Kansas State and West Virginia. NBC, we have Iowa and Michigan State. ESPNU, we have North Texas and Memphis. 7:45 on the SEC network, we have Kentucky and Florida. 8 o'clock on the ACC network, we have SMU and Stanford. 8 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, we have Colorado State and Air Force. 10 o'clock on the CW, we have UNLV and Oregon State. And the last nationally televised game on Saturday, 10:30, ESPN, we have TCU and Utah. And that is a list of all the televised games tomorrow night, Friday night, and Saturday in the world of college football. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. This is a weekend where you could see some teams take a big jump in the polls, and you could see some teams possibly be taken out of the playoff picture, at least at the current time, because the Bama-Tennessee loser will have 2 losses. And then if Georgia loses, it'll be their second loss. And if by some chance Arkansas beats LSU, it'll be their second loss. So definitely the loser of the Bama-Tennessee game will be on the outside looking in. And if Georgia loses, they'll be on the outside looking in for now. But, of course, the season is nowhere near over with yet. But Tennessee needs to win Saturday bad, because going into the season, everybody thought NC State was going to be a 9-win team, maybe a 10-win team. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, now they're going to struggle to make a bowl game. And as of right now, that's Tennessee's best win. So even if Tennessee does go 9-3, if you're 9-3, but you lose to Arkansas, and you lose to Georgia, and you lose to Alabama, that's your 3 toughest games. So 9-3 is a good record, but when you lose to the 3 best teams you play and you beat nobody, 9-3 is just not going to do you any good. If you could flip-flop that and you beat Alabama or you beat Georgia, and then you lose to Kentucky, then you can say, hey, at least we got a good win on our schedule because we beat Alabama or we beat Georgia. But when you don't beat Georgia and you don't beat Alabama and you lose to Arkansas and your biggest win is NC State, that's not good. So Tennessee needs this win Saturday big time if they have any hopes of making the playoffs, because this will be their second loss, and they've got Georgia next month. And the way their offense is playing right now, there's no way they're beating Georgia unless they find an offense quickly between now and the Georgia game next month. If they do, and they can beat Georgia, then losing to Bama Saturday won't be so bad. But right now, Tennessee can't score. They have not given up more than 19 points in a game this year, and they still have a loss. And guess what? Alabama's going to score more than 19, and Georgia's going to score more than 19. But any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I love my tunes while I scuba dive. I mostly listen to Air Supply. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.